You are not a tourist in time. You are a witness. And what you're about to remember may never leave you again. The rhythm starts in your chest, not like a heartbeat, not like anything human. A pulse cold, mechanical echoing beneath your ribs, like something has awakened inside you. You are barefoot on cobbled stone. The sun is high, but you're already drenched in sweat. Your feet are raw. Your legs tremble. Your breath is a thin thread you keep chasing, but you can't stop. No one around you can. They spin, collapse, rise again. Mothers, priests, merchants, even the children. There's no music, only the sound of flesh slapping stone, and the screams of those who know they will not last the night. It is July, 1518. You are in Strasbourg, and you are dancing to death. And somewhere inside, you wonder if this madness began in your own bones, or if the city itself is cursed. If what you're about to witness brings you more questions than answers, or a silence deeper than words, consider subscribing to this channel, not for the numbers, but so we can continue uncovering histories like this one, the ones that hum beneath the surface, that slip between the cracks of memory, that do not ask to be believed, only remembered. It is the summer of 1518 in the free imperial city of Strasbourg, then part of the Holy Roman Empire. The Rhine flows sluggish and brown past its stone walls. The harvest looks uncertain, and the streets are full of dancers. They are not dancers by choice. This is no festival, no celebration. It is what chroniclers will later call the dancing plague. Over the span of days, then weeks, dozens, perhaps hundreds ere, overtaken by a compulsion so intense, so destructive, they dance until their feet split, until their hearts rupture, until their minds unravel beneath the summer heat. Physicians are baffled. Priests call it a curse. Authorities build stages and hire musicians, thinking perhaps the dance must be finished before it can stop. But it does not stop. The death toll is unclear. Some say a dozen, others swear over 400. But what matters is not the number. It is the fact that no one could explain it. No infection, no wound, just motion violent, rhythmic, and unceasing. And you are one of them. A shoemaker, a widow, a washerwoman. Your identity shifts with every retelling because history did not record your name. But they remembered what you did. You danced, and you could not stop. Strasbourg was not a place unfamiliar with death. The Black Death had swept through in earlier centuries. Religious tensions simmered. The people were tired. And then came Frau Trophia. On a hot morning in July, she stepped into the street and began to sway. Alone. By the end of the week, 3 dozen had joined her. By the end of the month, the city had surrendered its sanity. You are in that crowd, and you feel it not joy, not pleasure, but something darker, something you cannot name. But you do know one thing. This is not a dance you chose. The morning begins like any other. The sun glints off cathedral spires, and the clang of blacksmiths has not yet grown harsh. You are walking through the corn-marked square with a basket under your arm. A routine so ordinary, so well worn it should feel safe. But something tugs at you before you even hear it. It is the silence, a hush that settles strangely over the stones. Not the reverent quiet of prayer, nor the sleepy hush before noon. This is a silence that feels coiled, and then it uncoils. You see her first Frau Trophia. No one important, no one remarkable. She wears no mask, no crown. Her apron is stained like yours, but her body is not hers anymore. She moves like a marionette, tugged by invisible strings, arms jerking sideways, knees buckling and locking in erratic tempo. No flute, no drum, no hurdy-gurdy sings for her. Yet her feet strike the cobblestones in rhythm, as if she is hearing something that no one else can. People stop to look. A baker leans from his doorway. Children fall still, wide-eyed. You do not understand why you can't look away, because it isn't joyful. Her face is slack, her eyes wide not with pleasure, but with terror. The motion never stops. She dances through the square, through the heat, through puddles of dung and the squeals of startled pigs. She falls, stands, falls again. You hear someone whisper behind you. A possession, a punishment, a devil, but you don't believe in devils. Not until her shoes split and her feet begin to bleed. Not until dusk falls and she is still moving. No food, no rest, no explanation. And then, in the last breath of sunlight, she collapses, but not from fatigue. Her body still moves, even as she lies on her side, curled like a dying insect. Her heels beat a pulse against the ground, like her own blood is no longer hers to command. That night, you cannot sleep, because you hear it, not in your house, not in the street, but somewhere behind your ribs. A tapping, a rhythm, and something is beginning to answer it. By the second morning, she is no longer alone. 6 more have joined her, not by force, not even with fanfare. They simply begin. A merchant drops his coin pouch in the street and twitches sideways, his knees snapping into motion like a wound spring. A young girl, no older than 12, drags her bare heels across the stones, mouth open in a silent cry. You stand among the growing crowd, and no one dares get too close, as if the motion might leap from flesh to flesh, like a spark across dry grass. Some say it is the saints. Others say it is the devil. A physician old, grim, dressed in somber wool, says it must be the blood, that the dancers are overheated, that their humours are misaligned. He prescribes leeches and cold baths. The bishop orders mass, but the dancers do not kneel. They twitch and sway through the sermon, backs arched, eyes rolled into their skulls like dolls left in the sun. The city council meets in haste. They speak of famine, of drought, of sin, but there is no decision, no explanation, no action. So, the dancing continues. And you tell yourself it is not madness, that it will pass, that it cannot spread like this. But late in the afternoon you see a man fall forward, his body jerking even as his skull strikes the cobblestones. The sound is sickening, final. He does not get back up. 2 men lift him by the arms, trying to stop the convulsions. But his legs continue the motion. His shoes flap against the stone, his toes cracking with each thrust. He's dead, someone whispers, but still he dances. They say the heart continues to beat, for a moment after it is crushed. But this is something more. You feel the bile rise in your throat. And when you walk away, you realize you were tapping your fingers in time. By the end of the week, they build a stage. Not for spectacle, but because the cobblestones are slick with blood and filth, and the dancers need smoother ground to keep moving. The council believes that the only cure is indulgence. Let them dance, they say. Hire musicians. Give them room. Maybe, just maybe, the sickness will burn itself out. So they erect platforms near the grain market, set up benches for drummers, fiddlers, pipers, a festival for the damned. You come to watch, not out of cruelty, but because you are afraid not to. There are now more than 50. Some say 100. It is hard to tell where the body ends and the motion begins. Women with skirts torn at the hem, men with ribs visible through sweat-dark tunics, children too young to understand what their limbs are doing. Some scream as they move. Some laugh. Some are silent, faces locked in grimaces of pain or ecstasy. You cannot tell which. The music plays, and their bodies answer it like puppets pulled by cords of nerve and fear. You begin to wonder, what if it's not the music that drives them, but something deeper? What if the fiddles are only mimicking a rhythm that already lives inside the bones? A woman drops in front of you, her face blue. A priest kneels beside her, makes the sign of the cross, then steps back as her legs twitch again. She is dead. But the movement does not stop. It is then you realize, this is not a plague of the body. It is something older, something that remembers what the body once was, and punishes it for forgetting. That night, you lie awake again. And this time, your feet are hot beneath the covers. You kick them free, but the motion remains. Day 10. The square smells like iron and milk gone sour. The heat has not broken in weeks, and the river flows lower than any elder remembers. Some whisper of the Rhine as if it has been offended, as if it has turned its back. You now walk with your head lowered. You avoid the stage. But the music finds you. It trickles down alleys. It threads between doorways. Even in your cellar where the air is still and damp, you hear it echo against the stone. And worse than the music are the feet, constant, ceaseless, a low thud like thunder trapped in a jar, growing louder by the hour. You hear of deaths now, daily, hearts bursting mid-step, joints dislocating, feet worn to ribbons, flesh torn away, exposing white bone pounding against wood. The bishop demands an exorcism. Incense pours from cathedral doors like fog. Relics are paraded through the streets. Bones of saints, scraps of holy cloth, even a vial said to contain the tears of St. Vitus himself. And yet, the dancing continues. One morning, you find your neighbour's child at your doorstep. She is barefoot. Her cheeks are flushed. She stares at you, lips trembling. And then, without a word, she begins to sway. You do not move. You cannot, because deep inside, you feel it too. That faint pulse, that forbidden rhythm, that now beats louder than your own heart. You rise early now, not to pray or work, but to see who is still standing. The street outside your home is scattered with shoes. Some are children's. Some are split at the sole, blood crusted at the edges. Some lie side by side, as if the wearer simply vanished mid-step. But no one collects them. No one sweeps. The baker's stall is closed. The church bell no longer rings. Not because no one is there, but because those who remain are too afraid to pull the rope. They say the vibrations echo in the ribs and call the dancing down into the chest. You walk with your hands pressed against your sides, as if you might hold stillness in with force. Past the butcher's, you see meat rotting on the hook. No one has dared to touch it in days. Even the dogs have stopped barking. They watch the dancers now with wide, human eyes, silent, as if they too know something unspeakable has entered the town. And when you finally reach the square, it is not a market anymore. It is a graveyard without earth. Bodies swaying upright. Bodies collapsed mid-motion. Bodies wheeled away on carts, not to burial, but to make room for others. The fiddlers have grown thin. Their music has changed, from bright and nervous to something slow, dragging, like the creak of a hanging rope in wind. No one smiles, not even the watchers, and yet no one leaves, because to walk away means turning your back on it, and no one dares turn away. The town's leaders have vanished. Some say the mayor fled to Strasbourg in the night, leaving his seal on the table, and his wife still swaying in the garden. Others say the priests have locked themselves in the monastery, fasting and flagellating, begging heaven to see them, or to forgive them, whichever comes first. You go to the cathedral anyway. You stand outside its great doors, expecting incense, psalms, some sign of authority. Instead, you hear sobbing. From within, you are no longer sure where to place your faith. The physicians have run out of theories. They mutter of overheated blood, of celestial alignments, of a poisoned wind. One brings out a long needle, insisting he can drain the madness from behind the eyes. Another tries crushed rose petals, boiled in oil and goat's milk, to soothe the feet. None return to check the results. You begin to notice the relic sellers. They gather at the edge of town, offering wood from the true cross, teeth of John the Baptist, a nail from St. Catherine's sandals. They shout of miracles, but none of them dance. You begin to wonder, if the holy are immune, does that make them blessed? Or does it make them different? That night, a man sets fire to his own roof and calls it purification. His neighbours do not stop him. They watch the flames, not with horror, but with envy. For a moment, the fire is louder than the music, and that feels like relief. Your friend begins to speak less. She used to bake every morning. Now she simply sits by the window, counting dancers. You ask her if she's afraid. She does not answer, only whispers, "I dreamed of music." But there were no instruments. You begin to dread the night. Sleep comes late, and when it does, you wake with your jaw clenched and your feet cramping. One morning, you find blood in your sheets. You had not danced, but your heels are raw. You wrap them. Tell no one. The children no longer play. They walk in lines, like little penitents, holding each other's sleeves. One boy paints red circles on the wall and calls them saints. Another ties bells to his fingers to keep from falling asleep. The town crier, once loud with news, now wanders barefoot, ringing a cowbell that no longer means anything. You see things from the corner of your eye, movements in windows, shapes crouched in alleyways. But when you turn to look, there is nothing. Or worse, there is someone watching you back, someone who looks like you, but does not blink when you do. You try to pray, but the words feel heavy now, as if the language of salvation no longer works in this place. Your heart is not just tired, it is tuned, like a drum, and you fear that soon something will strike it. They try building a stage. The idea is this: if the dancers must move, let them move in one place. Contain it. Observe it. Understand it. A wooden platform is raised in the center of the square. Musicians are hired officially, this time. Tambourines, fiddles, pipes. It works, at first. People come, they sway, they collapse, they are carried off. The next morning, new ones come, and still the square remains full. You watch from the edge, wondering when the stage became more than wood, when it became a pulpit, a magnet, a curse. A woman dances in her wedding dress. No groom in sight. A soldier removes his boots, sets them beside a fountain, and begins to move, eyes closed, fists clenched. A nun joins in. Then another. You do not recognize them. No habits, no crosses, only the rhythm. One evening, you find a note nailed to your door. No handwriting, just a stain shaped like a footprint. You throw it away, but in your sleep, you dream of your hands moving, without your permission. And in the dream, you are not afraid. You are joyous, free, lighter than air. You wake gasping, your hands still twitching. You have not danced, but you are beginning to understand why they do. You begin keeping a ledger, not of names most have been forgotten, not of dates they blur together like smoke, but of movements, how long they danced before collapse, whether they smiled or wept, what shoes they wore, how their hands reached upward, outward, inward. You hide the pages in your floorboards, next to the bread you can no longer eat. You tell no one. It is not a diary. It is not confession. It is a way to keep time. You mark your own body too. Bruises you don't remember earning. A fingernail snapped in half. A jaw sore from clenching. Once, you catch yourself humming. A song you do not know. You bite your tongue to make it stop. One night, you watch a man collapse mid-spin. He lies still, arms stretched wide. When you kneel beside him, he whispers, "I couldn't stop, but I didn't want to." You write that down too. In the margins, you begin to draw. A foot lifted off the ground, a hand twisted in ecstasy, a pair of eyes, wide open, looking skyward. You don't know why, but you feel it matters, because soon, even the memory may begin to dance. And when it does, you need something that stays still. The town no longer keeps records. The priest once kept a book of the dead. He burned it, said the names no longer helped the souls, only anchored them. You find scraps in the gutters, half-written letters, childish drawings of circles and feet, pages torn from Bibles, with verses underlined in blood. You begin collecting them. You no longer know what compels you, only that if no one remembers this, it will come again. It always comes again. One morning, you find a woman reciting verses backwards. each line more hurried than the last. When you ask her why, she replies, "Because if God is watching, maybe he'll see me differently this time." You write it down. You start drawing maps, not of streets, but of patterns, where the dancers first emerged, where they fell, where they rose again. You notice clusters, near wells, near relic cellars, near the baker's old stall that hasn't sold bread in weeks. You mark them all. You do not share them. Not yet, because now even knowledge feels dangerous. A kind of invitation. You feel watched, not by people, but by the rhythm itself, as if it knows. You are trying to hold it still, as if it resents you for that. Still, you write, because if you don't, what happens next might never end. One evening, you fall asleep mid-sentence. When you wake, the candle is burned down, and the ink has bled through the page. But there are new words, not yours, not in your hand. They say, "You were dancing in your sleep." You stare at them for a long time, longer than you should, then tear the page out and burn it. The smoke smells sweet, wrongly sweet. You begin to test yourself. Each night, before sleep, you tie a thread around your ankle. Each morning the thread is looser. You ask your friend to watch you. She refuses, says she doesn't want to see you that way. Or maybe she already has. One night, you go walking. Not far. Just to feel the wind, you find a line of shoes left on a bench. All different sizes. You recognize one pair. Your mother's. You write that down too. Later that week, you dream of a circle of people. All silent, all barefoot, moving in slow unison. At the center, a child with no face, holding out your notebook. When you wake, the book is beside your bed. You hadn't left it there. The next page is blank, except for one word, etched deep into the parchment. Remember. You do, but you no longer know if the memories are yours. Your notes grow stranger. You begin writing in circles, spirals, margins filled with repeated phrases. Not yet. Still moving. Keep breathing. You find yourself staring at ink blots, convinced they are maps, or warnings, or mirrors. Your own name appears less and less. You start referring to yourself in the third person, or no person at all. The writing is now rhythm. The rhythm is now ritual. You hear footsteps in your attic, but there is no attic. The man who sold you ink has vanished. His stall replaced by a crude stage. Children play there, dancing. No one stops them. You try to warn a stranger. She smiles, says, "The plague isn't in the body, it's in the remembering." That night, you stop writing, but the pen keeps moving. You lock it in a drawer. In the morning, it's back on your table, uncapped. The last entry in your journal reads, "If you're reading this, it means I remembered too much." You don't recall writing that, but you believe it. And still, you keep the book, because if the memory ever fades, you'll need to find your way back to who you were before the rhythm found you. One morning, the music stops. Not all at once. A silence creeps in like fog. Slow, creeping, suspicious. You wake and realize no one is dancing. No one is humming. No drums, no footsteps, no screams. Only birdsong. Foreign, out of place, as if mocking the absence of rhythm. You go to the square. Where there were once bodies, there are now outlines in dust. Scuff marks from where they were dragged. Not buried, just removed. The baker has reopened. He does not sell bread. Only stale crackers and oil. He won't look anyone in the eyes. The priest rings no bell. No one asks why. Even the children are quiet. You see a woman dancing alone in the river shallows. Her movements are slow, disjointed. She doesn't smile, doesn't speak. You do not stop her. Something about it feels final, or perhaps ritual, a way to let it leave the body, without letting it take the soul. Your journal grows thin, not for lack of pages, but for lack of words. You find you can no longer describe things, only name them. Empty house, missing girl, burned shoes, cracked sky. It is enough, because the longer it goes on, the more it feels like a dream you woke from, too vivid to forget, too strange to explain. But there's one problem. You still don't know who started it, or how, or why. The first name never came, and now there's no one left to ask. You return to the house where it began. At least, you think that's where. No plaque, no signs, just a hollow frame with weeds growing through the floorboards. You step inside. The walls are scratched with initials. Some you recognize from your journals, some you've never seen. One window is blackened with soot. The other? Smashed, with footprints leading outward, like someone left in a hurry, or was taken. You search for something, anything. A trinket, a bone, a page. Instead, you find a mirror, cracked, warped. Your face looks wrong, too thin, too still, as if you've never danced, or perhaps never stopped. You close your eyes, try to remember her name. The first one, the woman who danced alone in July, the one the others followed. You flip back through the pages. July 14, one woman dancing. July 15, 5 others join. July 18, 23, no signs of stopping, but no names, only numbers, only counts. She had a red scarf, you think, or maybe it was blood, or both. You begin to doubt yourself. You ask an old man, still sitting outside the inn. He says, "There was never a woman, just the rhythm." Another says, "She's still dancing, just not where you can see her." A third refuses to speak at all, but he taps his foot, slowly, deliberately, to a tune only he can hear. You leave before it catches, because you've learned something now. The name doesn't matter. The memory is enough. And memories, they spread. You try to leave. The town is still, docile, drained of rhythm, but your feet hesitate at the threshold. You've carried too much, and left too little behind. At the edge of the road, someone has set a stone, a small marker, carved with just one word. That was. You don't speak the dialect. You ask a woman beside it. She shrugs. Could mean something, or someone. She says it was placed there after the last body stopped moving. No one knows who set it. No one touches it. You stare at the word. It was not a name, not a memory, just the shape of one. You sit down and open your journal for the final time. You write, "The last dancer was not the last to fall, only the last to be seen. I do not know who the first was, but I know I will not be the last." You place the book beneath the marker, press it into the dirt, and you walk. South, you think, or maybe east, wherever the song hasn't reached yet. Because in your silence, you've come to understand the plague was never just movement. It was remembering and forgetting. And now, you carry both. Years pass, maybe decades. The town is renamed, the river redirected, the square paved over and repainted. Tourists come now. They pose beside old wells. They take pictures near brass plaques that say things like, "Site of unusual hysteria, 1518. No mention of bodies, or blood, or the girl with the red scarf. Your name is no longer on any register. Even you forget how it sounded. But your feet still ache in the rain, and you hum sometimes, quietly, without knowing the tune. Then one day, in a market far away, you see someone dancing. Not for coins, not for applause, just dancing, alone, to a rhythm no one else hears. You feel it stir in your chest, and you do not stop her, because you understand now it never mattered who started it, only that someone remembered, and someone else carried it forward. That's how memory survives. That's how stories walk from one century to the next, on blistered feet, under forgotten names, through rhythms that refuse to die. You walk away, but for the first time, you feel no need to turn back, because now, someone else is listening. You don't remember the first name. Maybe you never truly knew it. But you remember the rhythm. You remember the silence after. You remember what it did to your hands. How they trembled not from fever, but from trying to hold memory too tightly. Long after the bodies are gone, after the church stops burying, after the rivers are calm again, a single question remains. Was it real? Or was it fear? Hysteria? Mass delusion? Or was it something older? A sorrow that couldn't speak? And so it danced? Modern historians still argue. They blame ergot fungus, or stress-induced seizures, or psychogenic illness. They say, it wasn't the plague knot truly. There were no pustules, no rats, no coughing blood. But you know better. Because you were there. Or someone like you was. And the truth isn't always in the symptoms. Sometimes it's in the silence that follows them. The plague that made them dance didn't need a name. It needed a vessel. And they, the shoeless, the trembling, the grieving, they gave it one. For days, weeks, months, until there was nothing left to give. Some say the last dancer collapsed in the churchyard. Others say she vanished into the forest, her steps still echoing. But you remember the most frightening part, the moment no one danced anymore, and no one asked why. Not because they forgot, but because remembering made the silence unbearable. That's why you're here. That's why this story is whispered in dim corners. Why you still dream in threes. Heartbeat, breath, footstep. So the next time you hear music where there should be none, don't look away. It may not be joy. It may be memory trying to survive. And now, you too remember. And that is enough to keep them from vanishing forever.